Look at this marshmallow fluff. Would you believe me if I told you I turned that weird modeling clay into these adorable dolls? Well, it's true, and it's coming up on this episode of The Artist Studio. In the last episode, I showed you how I used Crayola Model Magic clay to make an extremely lightweight JoJo vampire stone mask. That build was a lot of fun, and it got me thinking, what else can I make with the stuff? How intricate can I get with Model Magic, and what is it best used for? So I chose to make a couple Animal Crossing character dolls because, well, I've been a huge Animal Crossing fan ever since the original American release on the GameCube.
I just been fishing, seeing some pals.
I have many fond memories of KK and Isabelle beckoning me into their clay-like world of financial entrapment. So I wanted to immortalize these two as dolls so they could sit on my shelf. Like the rest of the things that I create for myself. To begin, I carved out a head and body shape to combine with some armature wire to act as the skeleton for the dolls. For the Isabelle doll, I first attempted to use a mesh sculpture wire to help the Model Magic adhere to the skeleton more easily. I want her posed in the classic Isabelle wave we see her in all the time. Just a heads up though, for anyone looking for a reference of Isabelle and needs to do some Google image searches of her, just don't. I mean, unless you're into that sort of thing. It just kind of was a surprise to me, and not a fun surprise. After a lot of testing with the Model Magic on the torso, began to find the wire mesh unhelpful for the head, and eventually removing it entirely. For the KK doll, I decided against the mesh entirely, and just used armature wire and the carved styrofoam balls from earlier. Since KK has a more slender body and walks around naked like a pervert, there's a lot less body mass to fill in, and I relied entirely on Model Magic for that. To attach the head, I used a bit of superglue to affix the Model Magic parts together. To fill in all the grooves and cracks, I used a bit of watered down Model Magic to make a slip. Once the clay was completely dried, I found I could smooth out rough areas by using a small metal file. After smoothing it out, we'll need to prime the dolls. This clay is extremely absorptive, so it'll need a coat of gesso before we get painting. Alright, so the primer has dried overnight and they are ready for painting. I just love the look of these guys, they are so cute. So I went out to the dollar store and got a few colors that I think we might need. These deco art paints have a fairly matte finish that almost makes every color look pastel-y, a quality I'm generally adverse to, but for the Animal Crossing universe, it feels appropriate. From what I can tell, Isabelle has 3 colors to her fur. This base yellow, a lighter yellow, and an accent orange yellow. I then painted her skirt navy blue and the base color of her shirt green. I then used a watered down darker green to add stripes in a vertical and horizontal pattern, creating the famous Sable Sisters pattern. Next I added details like her red bow, and the red on her scrunchie, and her buttons. I then drew on her face, which unfortunately was another mistake in this build. I decided to use black ink felt tip pens to draw on her eyes, which seemed like a good idea at the time. But when I went to paint on highlights and white details, the ink began to bleed into the wet paint, continually resulting in a gray hue that wasn't working for me. I sat Isabelle aside and returned to KK to fix something that had been bothering me. I just felt something was off with him, and soon I realized KK's hands and feet were completely wrong. Let me know in the comments if you noticed this before now and it's been driving you crazy. Luckily for us, Model Magic is pretty easy to model with, and you can add parts as long as there's enough surface area to adhere to. There, now you can play his guitar. After letting these two dry for a couple days, I went a little overboard with the gesso on KK just to cover up that ink. Let's give this guy his tool of the trade and somewhere to perch that cute little tush. For the guitar, I used a couple layers of cork sandwiched between some cereal box cardboard. For the neck of the guitar, I used a strip of crafting wood. By scoring just the crease here, I was able to bend the neck of the guitar back without actually breaking the piece off. To bind everything in place, I laminated a piece of cardboard and formed it into the body, then capped the sides with some more cardboard. For KK's stool, I cut these pieces of wooden dowel and skewers to size. These smaller pieces will become the struts for the stool, keeping everything stable. I'm then just using some super glue to keep it all together. For the stool's top, I laminated a piece of cork with some cardboard. Once it's all glued together, I used a mixture of brown paints with some red to create a wooden grain look. I also did a similar technique for the guitar, plus some of the little extra details on the guitar, like these stickers on the back. With the paint all dry, I'm going to give these wooden pieces a coat of Wellbond to give them a little varnished look. Now, I'll be first to admit, these dolls do look a little amateurish, but, you know, I love them. I was just here to explore this new material, see what it's capable of, and I had a lot of fun doing it. For one, I think Model Magic is best used for costume pieces where the level of detail is larger. For these two, the marshmallow quality was fighting against me, and I feel like there's better modeling clay for figurines like these. Oh, looks like I'm getting the signal. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy the sweet sounds of Mr. KK Slider. Thank you once again to my patrons. If you want to know how to support the artist studio, consider joining my Patreon and gain access to weekly check-in vlogs where I'll be sharing my creator content adventures as they unfold. The studio is also opening time in the production schedule to begin some commissions, so if you've been watching along and wondering how you can get your own hands on your own unique art piece or mask, well, now is your chance. More info and links are in the description. Lastly, if you've not already, please subscribe to the channel and like the video if you've liked it. Leave a comment if you have any ideas for future builds, and give a hug to someone you love.
Beep, 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 beep,